Many people know Chassity Evans, a lifestyle creator, through the beautiful world she has built online. But with her debut novel, Pink Sand Summer, she expands that storytelling into an entirely new medium. Inspired by one of her favorite places, Harbour Island, and its rhythms, beauty, and emotional landscape, the novel explores the powerful relationship between memory and place, inviting readers into a world that feels both transportive and familiar. We really touch on everything in this conversation, from what it's like to share your life online to writing a book, the role place plays in shaping narrative, why we crave a good summer book, creative identity, memory, just everything. And I had such a great time talking with her. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. Well, let's dive into this today. I'm so excited to speak with you. Why don't you go ahead before I ask all the questions? Please introduce yourself for our listeners and tell them a little bit about what we're talking about today.
Hi, Allie. Yes, my name's Chassity Evans. I am a content creator. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I have been an influencer, blogger, content creator, pick your favorite term, since 2010. Basically, that means I share things that I love, whether that's clothing or beauty, places that I like to go, one of which being Harbour Island, where my family, my husband, my kids, and I have a house called Coral House. And our time there really encouraged and inspired me to write my first romance novel. It's called Pink Sand Summer, and I'm really excited about this new journey.
Okay, so I have lots of questions about Harbour Island, but I think I have to ask the first one, which is how do we go from content creating to writing?
Well, that's a question I'm still trying to answer myself. I literally woke up one day knowing that I was going to write this book. Never before having thought about writing a book or dreamed about writing a book. So it really, I don't know if it came to me as a dream or or what it was, but I woke up very early one morning knowing I was going to write this book. So it's just kind of something that maybe was meant to happen.
Yeah. Are you a reader?
I'm a huge reader. I've been a
Okay.
big reader all of my life, starting with probably maybe Goosebumps and Judy Blume, which then went into the Babysitters Club and Sweet
Love.
Valley High. I had every single book, and I still do. I've just been a big reader, so I think that probably helped get me ready for this. Helped
Yeah.
me figure out what I like in a story, which in general is like I prefer a light and happy kind of romance.
Yes. As a romance reader myself, there is something that is comforting about knowing that happily ever after is waiting at the like the end of the book, but there's still so much to enjoy in the in between. It never gets old. This book was very much right up my alley.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't know that it'll ever get old for me either. I don't foresee it. I'm not a thriller kind of reader. I'm a scaredy cat, so I'll stick with the romance.
I love that. Something that I was sort of curious about is content creating, influence, whatever, Instagram, you're sharing things you love. That is a very visual platform. So did you feel like this was an extension of like your existing creative work, or was it challenging to sort of flex these new muscles, especially with writing being new to you?
Good question. I would say both. It
Okay.
was incredibly challenging because, it was something new that I was trying, but also at the same time, for 15, 16 years, I have been sharing and creating. And really, this Pink Sand Summer kind of felt like a deeper way to story tell the things that I love and get to share Harbour Island and the places on Harbour Island that I love. And I have fashion mentioned in the book. It's like all my favorite things,
Yeah.
but in a make-believe story.
I loved it. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of those details because that was something I definitely noticed as I was reading. You just mentioned that I don't want to forget to ask. You mentioned that this book kind of came to you. So, how much of that did you feel like you already knew going into it? Did you plot it out? Or were you more of what they call like a pantser? Did you kind of fly by the seat of your pants and like let it take shape as you were writing? Because there's, without going into, spoiler land, there are a lot of things that in my mind, would take some thinking out to connect different dots, right? So how much of that was you just like woke up one day and were like, oh my gosh, this is the story? Or was it more like a general overview that you felt called to the right?
I am a pantser,
There
as
it
it
is. Yep.
turns out, which until I started writing Pink Sand Summer, I had no idea what that term meant. I had never even heard it before, but that is what I am. But with that said, I started writing basically exactly what I had dreamed that
Yeah.
the story was going to be. I did take 2 weeks while I thought about it before starting it, thinking, okay, am I actually going to write this book? And I put tons of notes in my notes app on my phone. So I did kind of think it out a little bit, but it was in no way organized as any kind of guideline for what the book was going to be. It was very much writing as it kind of flowed out of me. However, there were a lot of things about the story that changed throughout the process because I did so many different drafts of Pink Sand Summer,
Yeah.
and each draft things would change. In the story, it's kind of a little bit of a love triangle. And when I originally thought of the book, the person that I thought she was going to end up with is not who she actually ends up with at the end of the book now. So that was a huge thing that changed. At one point in the book, there were a lot of Charleston scenes because my main character
It's
is
from Charleston,
from
right? Yeah.
Charleston. And so I had brought some of the story back to Charleston. And then, I ended up scrapping that. I wanted the entire book to take place that summer on Harbour Island.
Mhm.
So there were definitely things that changed. And then going back through each draft would help me connect things, like you mentioned. So I learned a lot. I don't think I could ever just write one draft of a book and be like, bam, that turned out perfect.
From the start of this idea, like how long ago was that? How long ago did you like this idea kind of percolate? And then you were like, you know what? I think I am going to do this. So timeline wise, what are we looking at here?
So it was, I need to look this up so I can say for sure. It was either December 21st or December 23rd of 2024 that I woke up knowing I was going to write this book. And then I took the 2 weeks. We were leaving that morning to actually go to Harbour Island for Christmas break with the kids. That time there on Harbour Island to kind of think about it. And then when we got home, I started writing it on January the 6th of 2025. I would say all of the writing wrapped up by end of January 2026. So it took just a little bit over a full year to get
Yeah,
the whole story done, all the drafts, all of the different editing.
which is like that's a pretty good timeline.
It was, well,
Especially
I'm
for it being like
learning.
your first book. That seems pretty impressive to me.
I think my editor would help keep me on track,
Yeah.
like we had a goal to get it out this coming summer. I'm pretty good about a goal.
Well, and I think too, it can be really easy with something creative. Did you hit a point where you felt like this is for sure done? Or would you, if your editor hadn't said like, no, we're good, do you feel like you would have kept making new drafts and editing and revising?
I think I could have kept doing drafts forever, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like with creative projects, it sometimes is like, as the person creating, it's so easy to just be like, it's not perfect, it's not done.
Right.
So having those deadlines or someone behind you kind of encouraging you to, this dream is realized, this can happen for you right now, I think is probably very helpful.
It was incredibly helpful. Yeah. And I would probably still be in the drafting writing phase if
Yeah.
not for that. You're right. Yeah.
I definitely wanted to ask you about Harbor Island because
Mhm.
this is it's almost like its own character, right? Setting is really a character in this book. And so I want to start with your personal experience there first. So you mentioned that you have a house there. So can we elaborate a little more on your personal history?
Sure. So my husband and I, Josh and I first started going to Harbour Island, I think maybe 2012. It was one of our first trips that we did without the kids. And right away fell right in love with the whole island, the people there, everything about it. We went a few more years every year, And then we bought Coral House in 2016. We did a little renovation. It was a two-bedroom. We added two bedrooms. So we've done some of the whole renovation and building and all that that goes on an island in the middle of nowhere. And now we go, I want to say probably just 3 times a year. Now we go for maybe 4 to 5 months in the summer, 2 weeks at Christmas, and then ideally one other trip. It's just hard with the ages that our kids are right now to find a good window of time. Also, more importantly, we rent Coral House out
Mm,
and it does book pretty well. So it's
yeah.
not always, it's not just sitting there empty for us to be like, oh, we actually have a free weekend. Let's fly down there. We can't do that. It's usually somebody staying there. So it has really enhanced my life so much having this like second place that feels like home. And it's a really special island.
What I love is that, like I said, Harbour Island plays almost its own character in the book. There's so much about the setting. You can tell you're very passionate about it, which is lovely. I'm curious if that was helpful or a challenge for you to incorporate a place that you love and know so well as fiction.
For me, it was very helpful because it was one less thing that I needed to make up.
Yeah,
The
that's
characters are
fair.
all made up. So it helped that I could visualize an island and all of the places.
Mhm.
And also, it's kind of what made me so passionate about telling this story because I wanted to share Harbour Island. So
Mhm.
I wanted to share the Dunmore and Gustie's and Sip Sip and all of my favorite places that I like to go. Mention the hardware shop that my husband loves to go to, like all of those things that make Harbour Island special to us, I wanted to share in this story. So I think it helped.
You kind of just touched on my next question, which was what things did you create and which things did you pull from reality?
All of the characters are made up. And the story itself, I didn't take any real person and plop them into the story.
I know that, again, I'm going back to sort of this like dream vision that you had about the story. Did you automatically know Harbour Island was the setting when you were thinking about this, or did you dream up more the like love triangle first?
Harbour Island, that was first and foremost the whole driving force of the story.
And then did that sort of inform you knew you wanted it to be like a summer novel or a summer beach read?
Yeah, I think summer beach reads are my most favorite.
They're so
And
good.
summer sort of lends itself well to a character. Maybe you can wrap your head around the idea that people will go away for a summer. Most people cannot do that, but it's written in enough of these kind of books that we can all kind of suspend that reality and picture people going somewhere repeatedly every summer for 3 months. So that I needed a good bit of a time frame for that, and I think that just worked really well.
Going off of that, one of the things you said earlier was that I don't know if you specifically said summer, but definitely like a romance is sort of not an easy read, but like something that's like a little bit lighter, lighthearted. And then with it being a summer kind of beach read, there's that escapism. But this book also does have you did a really good job, I feel, of balancing the escapism with sort of like the emotional bits because there is, I mean, right off the bat, like we learn that the main character is in Harbour Island because of a death. Was that something that you had to think about at all, or that you were like, how do I keep this? There's elements throughout, right? Where like she has this really her arc, pretty emotional. Was that hard to do, or
I love that question. Yeah, it was kind of tricky because obviously she was grieving the death, this isn't a spoiler, is her grandmother. So, on one hand they were close and you have to honor that, but on the other hand, this is meant to be a light rom-com kind of summer read. And I did really have to balance that where she's not just grieving all summer long because that didn't lend itself. And there were times that I had to edit stuff like, or, pull out of those conversations that realistically would pop up on the island because it was a community of people who knew and loved her grandmother. So it was tricky to, kind of balance that.
I'm just kind of like laughing because it would have been like sad, sad sand summer, right? But it would have been a totally different story. Just like
I
sobbing.
like the alliteration though. Maybe.
I mean, hers is obviously she's the main character. She is the one with like the most prominent emotional arc. These other characters, though, are also like everyone really carried something that was very human. They have real problems, but they're in this environment that's sort of problemless. Yeah, I found that really, you did a really good job of that because sometimes you read a book and I'm sure you can relate as a reader. Like you read and you're just like, this is really heavy for, this is not what I thought I was getting myself into.
I'm reading one of those right now.
Oh,
Yeah, so I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, like the cover throws you off, the summary throws you off.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I really wanted to give these characters, while they're all pretty lucky that they're all there for the summer, but I needed to give them some depth because this is actually a universe that I'm building. So there's going to be multiple books. So the next book is another character, one of Lucy's best friends from Pink Sand Summer that you met. So I did kind of need to give everyone a little bit more depth than just a happy sidekick.
On the flip side, sometimes you're reading and you're like, these characters have no depth, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes it's just setting and it just doesn't feel real. So, bravo.
Well, thank
Um,
you. I guess I would interrupt real quick to say my editor was pretty instrumental, with pointing out where we could go deeper with characters too. Couldn't do it without my editor. Let's give credit where it's due.
One thing I did want to touch on is kind of going back to your creator life. You are also, in a way, a writer in that you craft a voice in this online presence that you have. Typically, that's pretty authentic, but I'm curious if you found that you were writing from that same voice or if you were trying to like tune more into your characters and not be so much you. What should readers expect if they've been following you for a while and kind of know your tone?
I would say there's a lot of me in this book. And I've been hearing that from people who know me who have read it.
Okay.
They'll say, I was picturing your voice the entire time that I was reading it because it really did kind of sound like you. So while it's not based on me, I did pour a lot of myself in there and I wrote it in my voice. I think the 15 years of content creation and sharing and talking to friends online helped me share this too. So it's a lot of me.
That's fun too for people who know you personally, but also follow along because I feel like that is a fun transition to be able to almost like in long form interact with something that you're doing.
Yeah, like if I were suddenly writing from a different type of voice and a type of genre, like a murdery, scary book, I think my audience would be shocked. It's kind of off brand for me.
That's almost the challenge, right? Of like, oh, how do we sound not like?
Yeah, well, and I'm trying, I'm working on that right now with book two of how do I make Dinah sound different than Lucy?
This goes into character. You mentioned that you kind of invented all of these different characters. Could you tell me a little bit about who the characters are, but also what creating them and bringing them to real life was like for you?
Yeah, so the main character is Lucy. She is from Charleston and is late 20s. I never wanted to give anyone an exact age so that people could kind of picture in their mind what they wanted to picture. But she's an artist, and I guess she's a lot like me, personality-wise, as it turns out. And then she's got a group of friends that she has grown up with every summer on Harbour Island. People that either live there full time or that also summer on Harbour Island. So we've got Dinah, we've got Sloan, Dawn, who owns a boutique right there in town. We have Jack, who's one of the love interests, and he lives two doors down when he's there for the summer. He doesn't live there full time. And he has his sister, Allie, who's also one of Lucy's friends. Thomas, who is one of the friends. And then we've also got Noah, who is the newcomer of the group. He's there helping a local musician because Noah is a songwriter. And he's the other love interest this summer.
That's a lot of characters that come into play, maybe not every chapter, but pretty frequently. Did you find that it was hard to make sure they all had a presence pretty consistently and also maintain their own identity and personality?
It was. One thing that helped me with that is that Harbour Island in general is a super social island. There's always parties, cocktail parties, dinner parties, events going on. And so there were a lot of moments where people could come together fairly easily. But I will also say that at my editor's suggestion, I made a character Bible
Mm.
that like physically so that I could really, as I was writing, look at that to help me really picture the actual character. And that was a huge tool for me, which maybe sounds like it wouldn't be as beneficial after a while. Like, yeah, I can remember that Dinah is a brunette, but I don't know, seeing a face kind of helped with that, you know?
Well, and also if you're talking about personality, like coming in and saying, okay, here's how so and so would respond to this situation. Because again, they all have very distinct personalities. And
Mhm.
also their dynamics of how they all knew each other was really
Mhm.
specific. So that is the kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, who's her closest friend? Who would she lean on in this situation?
Yeah, and I think the multiple rounds of drafts that I did and editing helped fill that out too. It definitely wasn't just something that would come, you know, it was like
Yeah.
building it in as you'd go back through too.
I know that your characters were more so invented, but did you pull from any specific memories or things that are true, like that do happen there? Did you invent all of these parties?
Everything is invented, but you know, I've been to a lot of fancy parties on the island, so I would say there probably is some inspiration of you know, beauty and kind of the vibe and the feel that you might get at one of those events. And there are celebrities all over the island. And there is some royalty sometimes, you know, that pops over. So it wasn't all completely made up, but still made up.
Hmm.
You know, I was never really picturing anyone in real life for those moments or any real house or
Hmm.
any real thing that happened. I do think that you know, all of my experiences there definitely played into it.
You know what's interesting is I've heard people talk about how sometimes they'll, so and so was loosely based off of a friend of mine, or I always think that that must be such a challenge over creating someone from scratch because I think I would get really in my head about, well, so and so wouldn't do that. Almost be really hard to insert somebody that I knew into a story where it's really just supposed to kind of play out in a specific way. I don't know. That I feel like that would almost be impossible for me to
Right. Yeah, I don't think I
do.
could do that very well either. Also, while one thing that I learned about writing this book is that while I'm writing, it's almost as though I'm seeing the movie of it playing out in front of me as I'm typing. I'm very visual. So I was seeing this cast of characters, and it wasn't anyone in real life. It was this cast of characters that I had kind of made up in my head playing out. And that would kind of dictate what was happening.
Well, I want to go back to setting for 1 second. We're both lovers of a good beach read. Traditionally, that is true to its name, a coastal setting. They are more lighthearted because of the setting, but then there's also they're known for being like a little slower and like the setting creates that atmosphere. Did you have to take into consideration anything setting wise that would almost create its own emotion or contribution that way?
I definitely wanted it to be a place of calm for Lucy, you know, like I wanted her to feel you know, restful when she was on Harbour Island, even though there's a flurry of fun events and all of, you know, these social expectations and things like that. That actually was a challenge because when I'm on Harbour Island, I feel really relaxed and I love to just go to the beach under my umbrella and read my book and kind of check out. I wanted her to have that type of a feeling on Harbour Island
Mhm.
while also partaking in all of these fun things. That was a bit of a challenge. I couldn't just have her sitting and relaxing all the time because that as a reader, it probably wouldn't make for a very fun story. And I remember trying to write those moments and thinking, this is boring. Like, there's nothing for me to say here about this.
Going off of that and the sensory details, for those who have not yet read the book, you touched on this brief, like in a different way, really early on in our conversation. It was so detailed. I was able to, and that was for me where I was able to say, she's very visual, and you can tell that you came from kind of this visual world. because it wasn't just like she had on a red shirt. It was like I knew the brand, I knew the detailing. I would argue that you did the same thing with place. I always felt like you were focusing a lot on setting the scene. Like I always really knew the difference of where the characters were stepping into because
Mhm.
there was very clear descriptions. Was that something that just was happening as you were writing, or were you telling yourself, oh, I need to do this?
That was actually both. Naturally, it would happen, and then my editor would push me to give more detail. It came very easily to do so because I could just kind of picture it and describe it. But as far as the island itself, it was really important to me to I wanted everyone to picture Harbour Island. I want everyone to read this book and go to Harbour Island. I just want people to experience it for themselves. It came naturally to me, but I did need a little extra push to do even more. I think I was hesitant of doing too much
Mhm.
description where it could maybe, get a little dull and you start skipping the lines. And if somebody wants to do that, they can and they can get like right to the dialogue. But for the people who love to picture like what kind of setting that house has so that they can feel it, that's there for them. Yeah, I like that. And I also like the sexy banter.
So I do want to talk about that because you had so many fun little quips and it didn't take itself too seriously, which probably helped with that emotional weight of it all, not feeling too heavy. Like there was that humor woven in throughout the entire book. Was that something that felt very natural to you or that you wanted to make sure to include? Or was that like, did you have to go back and edit the humor in?
Oh my gosh,
People
that
could
was
see you
hard.
laughing right now. You're just like,
That
you look
was
exasperated.
the sexy banter type of conversations and the more intimate scenes, like not that this book gets overly intimate, but those were the hardest for me. I'm my age, but I'm also picturing my daughter who's 16 reading it too, and I don't want to sound too dated with
Yeah.
some of the things that these characters would say. So you're really trying to get into the frame of mind. I mean, that's Gen Z, right?
Yeah,
Gen
I'm
Z?
34 and I'm millennial.
You're
So
millennial
they must
still?
be right under, right? Early 20s.
Yeah, so then I think that's Gen Z
Yeah,
for
it must be.
these characters. So, I'm an elder millennial myself, and that it was a struggle because I wanted it to be believable that these characters would be saying these kind of things, and
Yeah.
hopefully I got it right, but it did not come easily to me. It's tricky. Even saying a specific social media app could be,
Mm.
because think all of it didn't necessarily come easily. I most enjoyed writing the conversations between Lucy and her girlfriends because I love my girlfriends and I have a lot of them. And I could really picture those conversations more than the flirty kind of conversations happening. And so that was where I really had to dig a lot deeper.
Let's talk about that for a second because I did really appreciate, I think in a different way, I kind of touched on how they all had like a really unique personality and all those sorts of things. But what was fun was that while it is a romance, there was also these secondary characters, but it wasn't like they were just thrown in because she needed friends to supplement the romance. It was very much a sisterhood. Was that important to you to include? Like why bother? I mean, I know part of it is there's a relationship, there's a connect, like there's a lot of connectedness, but why, and I don't mean why bother, like that sounds aggressive, but that was a choice, is what I'm trying to say. Like that was a very obvious choice that you made.
Yeah, I don't think I could have written this book without the sisterhood, the girl friendship element, because it's just such a big part of my life. I can't picture diving deep into Lucy's story without her having these friendships. And I think it adds more depth to the story. And I love a found family kind of storyline. And also, it lends itself well to the universe that I'm writing, so that ideally you do feel like you know these characters a little bit and you will want to pick up the next book. My girl friendships are one of the most important things in my life. Yeah, it was just really important that this story had that too. Good, healthy, supportive girlfriends.
No, I really liked that they were actually a real part of the story. And
Yeah.
it fit really nicely into the romance of it all, which was fun. I would love to hear, obviously, we want people to read the book, which truly everyone. I am a reader and I read this book in like a day and a half, 2 days. Loved it. And I was telling my husband about it and I was like, over coffee, I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I really did enjoy it. And I truly mean that. I would not have had the conversation if I actually couldn't have, supported it. So I encourage everyone to go read it, but long-winded way of getting to. I really believe everyone will enjoy it. So outside of people just being like, that was a great book, is there a message or anything that you're hoping people take away from the story?
Thank you, first off. I hope that, tying back to the friendship element, I hope that maybe this could help anyone, maybe younger or older, who is struggling with healthy female friendships, maybe have an idea of what good, strong, supportive friendships look like.
Mm.
And also a love for Harbour Island and for listening to your gut and not closing any doors. I do want people to fall in love with the book, but more importantly, I want them to fall in love with Harbour Island and go visit it.
Something I probably should have asked you earlier, but is your Harbour Island community excited?
Yeah, they are. It's been incredible. Everyone has been so supportive that I feel really lucky.
Oh, good.
I'm almost tired of talking about it because everyone wants to talk to me about it so much. And what more could I ask for? Like I feel really lucky.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that you kind of hinted at was that there will be a next book in this world, in this universe, and you're kind of world building and being able to explore more characters. Is that something that you're actively writing, or when can people expect? Not that you have like a firm timeline yet, although maybe your editor has put that in front of you, but is that something that's already being fleshed out for you?
I am currently writing it, and that story will come out next summer, so summer 2027. The idea, my goal is a book a summer.
I'm excited. I will obviously be grabbing a copy. Where are people getting the book?
It's on Amazon.
I'm going to make sure to link to it in the show notes so that people can grab it when it does come out. We'll have that there. We'll also, obviously, we talked about how you have a social presence. So we'll make sure to put links so that people can follow you. Chassity, thank you so much for taking the time to come today. This was so fun to have just read this book, to be able to interact with you and get a little behind the scenes. And I am just so excited for you, especially with it being your first book baby. This is a really exciting time. So congratulations.
Thank you, Allie. This has been the most fun conversation. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to chat with you again soon.
Book two. We'll have our opportunity.
Yes.